all them.
This is not my office, so I'm not sure where the trash can is.
Okay, second my bag, it's okay.
Understand. So today I am interviewing Susan Crosby to consider for an elementary classroom position. The date is April 26, 2017. My name is Amanda Connolly, and is it okay to record your interview and use it to help others to learn more about this interview process?
Yes, ma'am.
So is the information in your application current and up to date?
Mm-hmm.
What degrees do you hold or are in the process of earning?
So I have a bachelor's in communications from Seton Hall with a minor in American history. I have an elementary education master's from Brooklyn College, and I am 9 credits from finishing my master's in reading, but Benedictine took it offline. So I'm kind of going back and forth with them on how we're going to get that completed.
Okay. Can you describe your experiences in working with children, including the grade and the subject areas?
So I've worked K through 12. My in-classroom experience was second grade for 8 years in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, New York. I was a New York City teaching fellow after 9/11. And I started there, and a lot of people left after their 3 years, but I stayed because I wanted to, because I kind of got tired of watching people leave. And I became a leader there. And I didn't leave until I moved to the Midwest. I was a K through 8 literacy coach in Venice, Illinois. When I first got here, that was cut because of Title Fund cuts. So I ended up going to Chicago for a year and a half because I couldn't find work here. And I was the academic interventionist to start for K through 8, all ELA. I basically did guided reading in Fontescano all day with guided reading groups in a very impoverished area. And then I got the call from SLPS to do K through 12 ELA. So I came back here. And my first year was K through 12. And then I met my current supervisor during my first year, and she got her allocation, which she had never had before in early childhood for pre-K through 2, for an ELA person. And I asked her if I could apply for that job. And I did, and I've been there ever since.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that current position.
So we have 45 elementary schools. And I have been working with them on moving into balanced literacy. My first year there, I created the framework. Well, I didn't create balanced literacy, obviously, but I created the frameworks for them to utilize, and then piloted a couple of programs that we could use because they really needed a spine. We don't have the money to bring in Teachers College or fly them out. I was trained in Teachers College. I was lucky, but they don't have that, and there's one of me in 45 schools. And we settled on the curriculum from the Center for the Collaborative Classroom, Making Meaning, Being Writer, and SIPS, because I just thought the units of study were still too theory and not enough practice for them. And for the last 2 years, that's what I've been working on with 45 schools, with 400 classrooms, is working on rolling that out. And it's been doing really well, really well. As you know, we're now accredited again, so.
So are you ready to begin the interview?
Oh, that wasn't it?
That was just the review at the beginning.
Wow. I'm sorry. Now you know how much I can talk. That was just a review. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you are meeting with a new student.
Mm-hmm.
What is your most important priority?
To get to know the student, to talk to them about where they were at school, find out what they like, what they don't like, interest, sit down, maybe invite them up for lunch, and just have a conversation with them. And then from there, if I get any gut feelings, red flags, maybe academically speaking, based on what they're telling me, I need to check into, I will. And then kind of look into what is their reading background, maybe do an informal reading inventory, or just have them pick up a book that they're interested in and have them read it to me, get some writing done, and then follow up with the family immediately.
Okay. So you said your first priority. Why was that your most important priority?
Especially for a new student, for any student, but especially a new one. I think they need to know right away that their teacher cares about them as a whole person. They're not just a data point. It's not just the academics. Of course, it's important, but there's a whole child there. There's a whole person there and a family with them. And I want them to know that that's very important to me.
You overhear 2 students talking about being treated unfairly by you. What would be your first thought?
I want feedback from them. I want to ask them, please, and I would be very clear, you're not in trouble. I happen to hear you speaking about this. I'm sorry that you didn't feel you could come to me, but I'm glad you at least had each other, but I'd like to work with you to see what we can do.
Okay.
So tell me, please, what's going on.
Okay. So how would you ensure that you're treating all students fairly?
I think fair and equal are two very different things. Especially, just differentiation in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to some students that can look unfair. Well, he's getting to do it this way, why can't I, right? But we understand that. And we have to find friendly ways kind of to explain that. But on a general level, I think all students should be held to the same expectations as far as everyone can achieve and everyone can be successful no matter what that capacity means or what that looks like for them based on where they are and how they're doing and where they are. It's not in comparison to any other student. They should be always comparing themselves to the day before. Am I doing better and working progress from the day before or the week before?
Okay. Is it likely a parent might accuse you of not understanding her point of view regarding her child?
And that's likely for anyone to go through. But I personally, my principal, and this is something that will always stick with me, my first principal always said to me, during parent-teacher conferences, the first ones of the year, if I walk by and a parent is shocked by anything you say, then you have not done your job to that point. They shouldn't hear anything during that conference that shocks them because you should have been in communication with them long before then.
So if a parent was disagreeing with you, how would you respond to them?
I guess it would depend on what the disagreement was about. If it was behavioral, which I think is the most common we hear, they don't act like that at home. It very well could be true. I would try to work it, again, I would try to talk them through, well, this may not be what's happening at home. This is what we're seeing here, and this is what's happening. This is how it's affecting their work and affecting their community, their school community, and how can we work together to support them. If it's academic based, I try to make sure there weren't any misconceptions. Maybe there was, a miscommunication or a misunderstanding about where or how they're struggling, and that, I'm sure I'm not a parent, and I always say that up front, but I'm sure I can imagine that it's very hard for a parent to admit, I don't know how to support them in this. You're saying they're struggling, but I don't. So I try to be proactive in offering ways. So if they are struggling and I'm sensing a confusion or a misconception, just to ways to proactively go about helping them without them having to ask for it.
Okay. One of your colleagues tells you to always validate the feelings of a student. Is that a good idea?
Academically or always?
Whatever their feeling might be.
So is it okay if I give two different answers? Two different parts to that?
So I'm just going to ask you, do you think it's a good idea at first?
Oh, I don't think anything is always.
Okay. Then how would you, if you did in that instance think it was important to validate their feelings, how would you do that?
I think in whole class settings, if we need students to validate themselves. If once you say, great answer, the rest of the class is going to shut down because they think somebody gave the right answer, I must be wrong, right? So we need to keep a more neutral stance with students so that everyone feels like their thoughts are going to be heard. And we need to do that whether their answer is right or wrong. Rather than telling them that, go back to the page in the book and reread it and see if they can figure it out themselves, which will empower them. And when they're reading independently or writing or working, they have the idea behind how to figure out, is what I'm doing making sense? Rather than just validating them and saying, yeah, that's great, and not finding out what their thought process is, what made them think those things, and then also maybe having an impact on what the rest of the class does.
Okay. A student teacher is teaching your class and has a wonderful idea to make the class more interesting. You are concerned the idea will affect the amount of content to be covered. Could this be a real situation?
I think it could be a real situation.
Then how would you handle that situation?
I like to give people, just because I would feel this way, I will be the first person to come to somebody, a principal, anyone, and say, I have an idea. And I would like to have the respect of, give it a try. And I'll own it, whether it works or not. Especially because they're a student teacher. I'm right there. It's not like anything's going to go so awry, somebody's going to get hurt or anything. I would like to give them the chance to try it. And then if it doesn't work, see if they know why. And if it does work, I might have learned something, right? So it could go both ways. I think there's a great benefit into giving them that chance.
Do you design and write out a lesson plan in detail for an activity or unit?
I don't understand. What do you say?
It's probably more obvious than you think. Do you
Okay.
design or write out a lesson plan in detail for an activity or unit?
One or the other?
Either for an activity or for a unit.
Oh,
or
okay.
yeah.
That's what I was confused. Like, do I have to make a choice?
No.
A unit is, if you're doing backward design, I think a unit's more of an outline.
Okay.
There are details, but there's more of an outline. The lesson plans are detailed. However, knowing that, I think formative assessment's very important and changing on the fly.
So that's going to be my follow-up.
Okay.
What is the essential component you must include in your lesson plan to make sure students are learning?
I think you need to constantly have formative assessment going on and check-ins, whether it's conferencing or, guided reading group work, or whether during math you're again, conferencing with them, talking to them, seeing what their work looks like. You need to know that you can plan all you want, but children are children, they're not robots. And that's what differentiation's all about. That's good teaching. Your instructional moves should be based on what you see in the classroom. You may have planned out something great, but if they're struggling or they're ahead of it, it's not great anymore. It needs to be changed.
Okay. As a teacher, how important is your classroom learning environment?
Very.
So when you're organizing the environment, what would you be sure to accentuate?
The library should be the heart of every classroom. And I would make sure to accentuate that space and make sure it's organized and detailed, and depending on the grade level being taught, that it's appropriately unveiled to them, so to speak, so they know how to use each part, and that it's a comfortable, inviting area. I would also make sure the space where we all meet together for lessons is very well organized, and the place where all their tools are. So as they go throughout the year, again, that independence grows. They know all my writing tools are here, my reading tools are here, my math manipulatives are here, my science, experiment stuff is here, my notebooks are here. They can go get it and bring it, rather than you having to waste instructional time dealing with those things.
Your team of teachers is having a serious discussion about the issue of teaching specific facts or applied learning to students. Would you participate in the conversation?
Yes.
What would be your input regarding the issue?
Depends on what the issue is.
So the issue is teaching specific facts or applied learning to students.
It depends on the content So to me, I would need more information to really correctly answer that. Like, I would need to know, is it math? Is it basic facts? Is it math fluency? If it's writing, is it editing, revising? Is it drafting, coming up with? If it's reading, is it comprehension? Is it decoding? Generally speaking, I think, again, it comes down to formative assessment and seeing what they're doing and thinking about, okay, so if they're struggling here, I need to insert a lesson to reinforce where I saw they struggled. And if they're doing well, how can I go deeper? I think it would be a general answer, but I'm not comfortable, to be honest with you, with that answer because I don't feel like I have enough information.
Okay. A colleague of yours is really motivated when he works with students. What effect would that have on student learning?
I think that has a very large effect.
So what do you do each day for yourself so you stay mentally motivated to work with students?
I am in schools more than I'm ever at the district. This time of year is the worst time of year for me because the map is going on, so I'm kind of stuck downtown. And it's not where I want to be. That's why, if you're wondering why I'm applying to go back into the classroom, whether it's as a coach, an interventionist, a teacher, doesn't matter. My best time is with the kids and with the teachers. And I miss that. I miss being in a building every day. And so I make sure my schedule is planned out that I can fit as many visits to as many schools as I can every day.
Your principal asks you to partner with a parent of a student in your classroom. How would you respond?
Absolutely. And on what? And I would ask why not.
So how would you build the partnership with parents to enhance student learning?
I would call them and explain to them what it is we're going to partner on and why I think their feedback and their participation is important. I'd ask them scheduling wise, if you can, everyone provide me a few times so that we can look at a common ground schedule. and go from there. And then try to make it as inviting as possible.
Your team members are discussing the principal's expectation to meet the unique learning needs of all culturally diverse students. Would you support your principal's expectation?
Yes.
So how would you meet the unique learning needs of all your culturally diverse students?
I think we need to celebrate different cultures. I think we need to make sure we're not shutting down students, when a lot of them, there are different ways that can happen. Whether we emotionally shut them down because it's like code switching is important. But there's a difference between code switching and knocking a dialect. And we need to make sure that that's very clear so that students don't feel like the way I was raised, the way I speak, makes me less of a person. There's just different ways to speak. The way I talk in this interview may not be how I talk to friends when I'm out at a movie, right? So I think it's very important. I think bringing the families in, maybe having cultural days, bringing in different books. There's so many different cultural versions of fairy tales and reading all the different types. Books like The Golden Rule, which talks about how all these different religions and cultures celebrate the Golden Rule. Those kind of ways, just making it as inclusive as possible. Talking to that student, if you have a student of the week, what about your culture is special to you? What does it bring to you? What can it bring to our class? What value can it bring to us? What can you teach us?
Thank you. How do you want most students to describe you to their friends?
Caring, concerned, motivating.
Why do you want students to describe you that way?
Because I think it's when they see that you care. I don't believe that students won't learn from teachers that they don't like. I don't believe that, but I do think they will learn more, a lot more, when they see that you care about them. And I do. If you're gonna have a long-term impact, you have to help students realize that what they're doing now is not just about the four walls of the school. It's going to affect the rest of their lives and making those connections. And if you can do that, you're going to have a lifelong effect on them. And I think when you're motivated and when they see that you're excited to be there with them every day and you're interested in them, that you're more likely to engage them and for them to be able to see those connections.
A student believes you are not fair in grading her last exam. What would you do?
I would talk to her about it. I would discuss it with her and see why.
Why did you respond in that manner?
Because I think the student's voice should always be heard. I think there are so many decisions we make that impact students more than anyone, yet we never ask their opinion.
Could two students engaged in a conversation respond disrespectfully to each other?
They could, they shouldn't. They can disagree, but they can respectfully disagree.
So if you overheard the conversation, what actions would you take?
I would probably talk to them. I would pull them aside when doing in front of the class. And I don't know if that's the situation you're giving or not, but just in case, if it was in front of a large group of students or anybody, I would wait until we could have a minute alone and just say, happen to hear this conversation. I think it's great that you're debating or you're discussing this, but how can we talk to each other in a more respectful way even though we don't agree? Adults don't always agree, but we have to find a way to talk about it that in ways that are respectful and still show care and concern for each other.
Many teachers want to have a celebration for a colleague who has won a National Teacher Award. Some apathetic teachers are resisting the idea. Does this sound like a real situation?
Yes.
So what actions would you take?
I would join the celebration. It's not as a teacher in that role, I don't know that it's my place to address my colleagues. If they came to me, then I would tell them, I would express that I don't agree with that. They won a wonderful award. Why shouldn't we celebrate them? That's fantastic. But I wouldn't proactively address it. I don't know that that's my lane as a teacher in the school. As a leader in the school, I think so. It could be addressed, but not as a teacher.
A student is not achieving in your class. You believe the student has a lot of talent. Could this occur in your classroom?
Yes.
So what actions would you take to bring about a change in the student's performance?
Motivation. See what motivates them. I would talk to them first and see where the disconnect is. Is it a I just don't think this matters to my life kind of thing? Is it specifically, well, we're reading about this, but I really want to read about this, right? Or like me with math, I'm never going to do trigonometry ever again. I don't care, kind of, and try to work it out to find out how I can motivate them to reach their best potential. And also explain to them that, look, I'd love to tell you that when you're an adult, you get to make all your choices and do whatever you want. The truth is, honestly, there's even more times when you're going to do things you don't want to do because you have to, so that you can do the things you want to do. And then if that didn't work, I'd probably reach out to the family.
As a cooperating teacher, would you seek feedback from your student teacher to enhance student learning?
Yes, and I would add on to that I would also seek feedback from my students.
Okay. Well, what strategies would you use to collect such feedback from your student teacher?
Discussion. Definitely discussion.
Could a colleague's teaching style be way too student-centered?
Yes.
So if a close colleague of yours tells you your teaching style is way too student-centered, what would you say to your colleague?
I don't know them. Now, if you asked me the reverse question, I would know the answer to it. I would explain to them what I was doing and why, and ask them what they would change. What do they see that's too student-centered? What is it about what I'm doing that they feel is too far off the track, and how they would bring it in? And then if there was something there that I liked or agreed with, I would try to make time to go and see them do how they're implementing it and what their strategies look like.
The proposed curriculum guide requires you to spend more time with students on classroom learning and less time on real-world applications. Is that a good idea?
No.
What would you say to your principal?
I would discuss it with them and explain to them that I think when you fall into that trap, you fall into it. And I keep going back to ELA just because it's in my head, but you fall into a trap where students are doing a lot of tasks about reading and writing, and they're never reading and writing. You want them doing things that they're going to be doing throughout their lives. We don't, as adults, as far as I know anyway, read books and make dioramas. So why are we asking students to? We want them to be learning skills and strategies that they're going to carry throughout their lifetime. And we want it to be authentic, and we want it to be real. Writing, when students write for the teacher, they want it to be good enough. When they're writing for a real world purpose, they want it to be good. And I think that has a strong impact not only on their academics, but as a person, because they can see where they have a voice to make change, and they find their voice.
One of your colleagues believes every student in his or her classroom can be motivated to learn. Is that realistic?
Yes.
How do you get all students to learn?
I think it completely depends on the student. But you have to build that relationship with them. And I'm not going to say that all students are going to be motivated to learn all things. But all students can be motivated to learn and make progress. Absolutely. You just have to keep looking until you find that connection. And there's always something. You just got to find it.
Okay. Your school has an initiative to partner on a project with a business person in your community. How would you respond?
Depends on the company and the project.
Okay. Should you choose to connect with this partner, how would you connect with partnering to student learning?
Speaking to my current position, because I'm not speaking to Rittner because I don't know if this is the case or not. We need classroom libraries desperately. We're asking teachers to make chicken parmesan, and we're not giving them the chicken. So the first thing I usually ask for is books, and it's also an easy. It's a low hanging fruit. Most business people who want to invest, they hear books and they'll gravitate to that. It's not a hard sell. So right now, and it's a current situation when I'm working with the St. Louis Public Schools Foundation, they have a grant, they have a business person they want to meet. We were working with Merritt's books, libraries, mean classroom libraries, and just if I do need to explain to them, giving them the reasons why we need them, inviting them into the classrooms, showing them, if they are uncomfortable with the whole district, fund one or two schools, come see it, and then let's see if you like what you see, we'll expand it.
Your students are not understanding the worth and dignity of classmates who are different. Is that possible?
Yes.
What would you do to bring about a change?
I think class discussions are really important for those pieces. I think opening yourself up to things that might be different about yourself to others, or times maybe when you've experienced that are classroom appropriate, are very important, because when, especially if you have the relationship and the rapport with the class, they don't like to, you have that when you come in and you don't feel well. And even the children sometimes misbehave, or like, why Miss Crosby doesn't feel well? When you have that, they don't want to hear about times when you felt like that. So when you open yourself up, it gets them thinking, well, why does it bother me that it made her feel bad, but it doesn't bother me that my friend feels bad? And putting the shoe on the other foot. I also think emotional literacy is really important. There's so many books that address this. The Recess Queen and the Golden Rule are just a couple of them that help bring people, the book Zero, that bring kids together and can help show them on their terms how to work together better, and how everybody has value and worth.
Okay. So this concludes the questions we have for you today. Is there anything else you would like to tell us about yourself?
I know you won't find a harder worker or a more passionate person. I love my work. I have not been in the classroom in 8 years. There'll be some rust there, and I know that, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But it'll be a quick, sweet, short learning curve, I think. And I think I bring a lot of added benefit because I have been on the district level, the coaching level, as a leader. I think I can bring that in. So I hope that people see that as a value add and not more of a... It can be turned into a negative, I think, sometimes in the heads of some people, like, well, she can't possibly really want to go back in the classroom, or she can't... Even as an interventionist, why does she want to work with kids directly? To me, that's not a demotion. That's the most important job there is, right? So I think people in district level should go back in the classroom every few years. You need to sharpen those skills. You shouldn't get rusty, because then you can't help teachers. You lose touch. So I hope that that's the way this is seen.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I turn this off?
Sure. Oh, sure.